Well, howdy once again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Mindset. It is a wonderful time here. We're recording this just a couple of days before Thanksgiving, and I especially give thanks for the fact that I get to join all of you and do these podcasts. So I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank our guest, Dennis Edward Szymanski. We're going to stick with Dennis, but we really appreciate you being here. And Dennis is involved with semiconductors. He lives life to the fullest. We were just talking before we started about his turtle, Lenny the turtle. He can talk about that if he wishes. And he also has some other interesting things that I'm looking forward to chatting about since he brought it up. And that is that he is, among other things, or he was, a stutterer. And so he lives with his stutter. He now lives in North Carolina on a beach. So it's his inner beach bum that he is supporting. Anyway, Dennis, without going in any much more detail about any of this, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. We're glad you're here.
Michael, not just because it's Thanksgiving, I am very grateful and thankful to be here with you, to have met you, as well as to be here with all the guests on Unstoppable Mindset and all the listeners to us, whether you're watching, listening. It's great to be here and happy to have this great discussion here with you today.
Well, we're glad you're here, and I'm looking forward to it. This will be a lot of fun. Why don't we start with kind of the early Dennis? I love to always start that way. Start with kind of the early growing up person, and let's go from there.
Of course. I think a good place to start a lot of the time is the beginning. So I'm a New Yorker, born and raised on Long Island, to two very loving parents who have been supportive throughout all of my endeavors, from supporting me and my stuttering journey to encouraging me to pursue other outlets like music, encouraging me to stick to my academics, and even supporting my love of pets, which, as you alluded to, I have a turtle right now. Her name is Lenny, but she is one of many dogs, lizards, hamsters, ferrets, chinchillas, birds. We've had a lot of pets growing up, and that has informed actually a lot of my current worldview. But we can get to that later.
What does your girlfriend think about all that?
Well, my girlfriend is a four-legged pet woman herself, staying outside of tanks. That's one of her remits. So Lenny, we got to realize our shared dream, me, my girlfriend, and Lenny, of getting Lenny out of the house, out of the tank, and into a pond in the backyard of my home here on the coast of North Carolina. So we're all happy. It's been an amazing summer. They are getting us all out of the house. So
well, that's a good thing.
She's very supportive of Lenny. We had two dogs together. Unfortunately, they were old and have since passed on, but we're planning to get some new four-legged friends down the line, and we are even in the process of adopting a stray cat that is hanging around our neighborhood. So it's a nice middle ground there. Not as much responsibility as a dog, a stray cat, but still the potential for the companionship and for the routine and for taking care of something that I know we both miss, being absent dogs. Not that Lenny doesn't take taking care of. It's just a different companionship.
Yeah.
Different kind of pet.
Well, we have my guide dog Alamo, and as listeners know, we also have Stitch the cat, who will be 16, we think, in January. We rescued her, we think, at about the age of 5. Family didn't want her, and they said, take her to the pound. And we said, no, we'll find her a home. And along the way, I happened to ask what the cat's name was, and they told me that the cat's name was Stitch. And I knew this cat wasn't going to go anywhere, since Karen had been a professional quilter since 1994. So quilters aren't going to give up an animal named Stitch.
No. Too many coincidences there to just not go ahead with Stitch.
Yeah. So Stitch is with us.
we think a very similar way. All the pets that I had, I actually never had a cat that was my own. Just parents were allergic, sister was allergic, things like this. Brother was allergic. But when our most recent dog passed, we noticed that this cat started coming around at only a few weeks before he passed. So we think that they had a little bit of a conversation to say that, you know, a little changing of the guard, a proper handoff, if you will. So we're looking forward to having our tuxedo cat, which we named very appropriately and affectionately Tuxie. We're unsure if it's a boy or a girl yet, so we went with Tuxie.
That's an adventure.
But straying back from the original topic, coming back on, yes, the stray cat pun was somewhat intended.
I get it.
Born and raised Long Island, New York. I left there when I was 17, out of high school, to pursue my undergraduate degree in engineering. Stepping back a little bit, my father's a insurance agent, but a serial entrepreneur. He cut his teeth in the insurance industry, but now is heavily involved in a cybersecurity startup. So a man who wears many hats. And my mother is in IT. So my first desk job, if you will, was in computers. And that kind of led me down the path of some sort of engineering related to computers. So I went up to the colleges of nanoscale science and engineering up in Albany, New York. For those familiar with the SUNY system, it's a state university in New York up in Albany, where I did 4 years there, and I studied nanoscale engineering, which is a fancy way to say material science with a focus in semiconductors, which led me to take my first job in industry while I was actually still getting my undergraduate degree, which bolstered my decision to continue on down here to North Carolina. I actually took my first step down in Raleigh as a PhD candidate at NC State, where I studied material science and engineering as well. And two things I've always, kept close is the love of business as it relates to technology. So I have a minor in business from my time in undergrad, as well as I took several MBA courses and got a technology entrepreneurship certificate from NC State. So I take the business and the technology, I've married those into a career here as a product engineer for a compound semiconductor manufacturer, all of which we can get into a little bit more. But the other love that I keep close and have recently had a renaissance in my life is my love of music. I was actually faced with a choice of music or engineering back when a lot of us started to apply to college or university at that time in their life in high school. And I chose the engineering route, but always kept a love of music. It was my first paying job, playing gigs in bars when I was younger. And right now, I actually, like I said, I'm having a renaissance. I took a little bit of a hiatus while life got busy in grad school and getting my feet under me in the corporate world, taking my first job, but learned to understand the need that my brain, to have that left brain, right brain, creative mind, logical mind flexed, and just to have the time to myself. It's something that I enjoy, something that I've enjoyed since I'm 8 years old, and I'm happy to keep continuing it. And I want to finish the opening monologue here, if you will, with something you said, that I'm a lifelong stutterer. And ever since I opened my mouth, I can remember having disfluent speech. And I have to say that the biggest support that my parents ever gave me was encouraging me, as well as helping me at a very young age start in speech therapy. I have met so many people in my life that did not have supporting parents or a supporting situation, and to see that impact and that thread be traced throughout my life, and in juxtaposing it to other people's lives, it really makes a difference to have that supporting environment, that belief, because You said it, I live with the stutter every day. It's very well managed now in my life. There was a time where I could not finish a sentence when I was in elementary school, early middle school, without having a stutter. But now I've learned through speech techniques, living my life in a relatively holistic way, how stress relates to my stutter and so many other things, that I can manage it a lot better. But as my fellow stuttering people out there that might be listening, you always live with it. You're never quote unquote cured. You're always having that stutter, managing it, whether it's overtly or covertly, it's always there. But very happy to get into all of that and more here with you, Michael, as we kick off the episode.
So what causes stuttering? Do we really know?
That's what in part is so fascinating, is that we can't really pinpoint it. Whereas to say this part of the brain for sure is, impacting this part of your vocal cord in this way. And if we get in there and treat it however way, it's going to go away. There, of course, is ideas that, certain parts of your brain have more of an impact or influence, and that it does directly relate to your vocal cords. Because at least from my stutter, how it works and how I could, most effectively explain it is my vocal cords simply lock up. So normal vocal cord operation, it's like a string on a violin, right? Or a string on a guitar. If you pluck it, it resonates, vibrates, makes sound. Your vocal cords work just the same, but their mechanism of quote unquote plucking is the air that you breathe. So if they lock up, you don't have vibration, you don't have sound, you don't have speech. And what's interesting is that if you were to put your ear or your hand to my mouth during a stuttering episode, there's still air flow. Like there's still air leaving my mouth, just as it does during fluent speech, but there's just no action. And something else that is very interesting about my stutter, and I've talked to other stutterers that have a similar experience, is that we know what we want to say. It's all upstairs. It's all formulated. It's just the physical blocking of the vocal cord, at least in my case. And I make I make it important to say my case, because there is very different manifestations of stuttering, stammering, how one might block, how one might repeat a word, what are different triggers, etc. So in a nutshell, we don't really know, which is why there's so many different theories, methodologies of treatment, how to cope, deal with, treat the stutter itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, and I appreciate you giving us that explanation of it. It is something that I think is very important to point out, that one of the things you mentioned is extremely crucial. Your parents were supportive. They helped you. My parents did the same thing when it was discovered that I was blind. And a number of parents have really bought into helping their children recognize they can do whatever they choose and that they can deal with so many different issues. And oftentimes we also hear about parents who don't support. Some people succeed in spite of it, and some do not. But it's so important to really know that some of us have parents who really help and will do anything that they can to assist us in making life better for us.
And when we first got connected, and then afterwards doing more listening to your talks and other episodes of Unstoppable Mindset, I had learned that your parents were were supportive as well, and that made a mental note, as a matter of fact, to bring this up here in this talk, because I could not agree more the importance of support of your parents, especially as a young child. That's where everything starts. But then even as we grow, our friends, larger family, and the networks that we keep are so important to our development, success as individuals.
Yeah. So your parents are still with us?
They both are. They divorced when I was very young, but that again, had no bearing on the support and the love. I have a stepfather and a stepmother who are equally incredible and supportive. I always said I just got double the family that loves and cares about me.
There you go.
And my mother still lives on Long Island in the house where I grew up. So I love to go visit. Was just back there a couple of weeks ago and are heading back up in a couple of weeks' time. And my dad actually lives in South Carolina. He relocated with my stepmother and my brother. They are around the Columbia area. So we're actually both Dennises in the Carolinas. So that's actually quite nice. And I'm just saw him a couple of days ago, and I'm going to see him around the Thanksgiving holiday as well. So looking forward to that.
Well, last time I was back in the New York area for any length of time, I spent a week last year in Lindenhurst speaking to the Lindenhurst Union Free School District. And that was a lot of fun. Fortunately, it was before the snow hit.
Oh, yeah. Lindenhurst was about a half an hour from where I grew up, one of the many, many towns that is the infinite urban sprawl of Long Island.
Yeah. Well, yep. Well, it was fun. I was there for almost a week and spoke to lots of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, did some faculty training, but enjoyed the area. And I've enjoyed Long Island every time I've been out there. So it was kind of fun. Well, I want to go back to this idea of nanoscale. Tell me a little bit more about nanoscale engineering.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's basically material science and engineering, but with a focus in semiconductors. So having had the hindsight now, traditional material science background from NC State when I went to do my graduate work, things like traditional material science, so metal stress strain curves, didn't learn that in undergrad, focusing in semiconductors. I learned about transistors and the ethics of scaling semiconductor technology and computer programming at a very basic level that could help run certain parts of a semiconductor process. So very specific, very targeted focus that was nanoscale engineering. I was very fortunate to be the 6th graduating class out of the small colleges of nanoscale science and engineering, like I said, that was part of the SUNY Albany system. And very hands-on. I was in a building on the university's campus that was essentially an office building with 250 private companies pooling their resources in the office space as well as laboratory space, clean room space, but with a couple of classrooms. So not only was I rubbing shoulders with classmates, I was rubbing shoulders with people who worked at IBM or Global Foundries or ASML, Tokyo Electron. These are big international companies that play in the semiconductor manufacturing space. And little did I know that was going to kickstart this incredible journey that has led me, here to being a product engineer for a compound semiconductor manufacturer focused on gallium nitride power technology. So where people might be hearing this is in the AI data center talk. This material is going to enable faster, cheaper, cooler, more efficient chips, as well as you might have noticed electric vehicles, your laptop, even your cell phone charging a little faster in recent years. And those bricks, that used to sit on your lap and burn your lap they're cooler. They're not as hot. All of these are direct advancements in compound semiconductor technology, and essentially nanoscale engineering. And to go to its most fundamental root, nanoscale engineering is engineering on the nanoscale. And where we're at with semiconductor technology is we are looking at, in silicon, a transistor is about a nanometer, 2 nanometers, which, to put it in perspective for everybody listening, your hair, the width of your hair is 60 to 80 micrometers. And nanometers are 3 orders of magnitude smaller than micrometers. So you can imagine that the reason we need clean rooms in semiconductor manufacturing is because one of your hair could wipe out hundreds, if not thousands, of transistors on one of the chips, which nobody wants, right? You want a good manufacturing process that has high yield. So nanoscale engineering has been was the start for me. With the continuation of that has been to go into, as I said, material science in a more quote unquote proper sense, learning those stress strain curves, learning a little bit of polymer science, all applications of material science, but staying focused from age 17 till now on nanoscale engineering, which is material science focused in semiconductors.
If I recall right, transistors were developed somewhere around 1948. So, I mean, my gosh, that's only 77 years ago. And look how far we've come.
It truly is mind-boggling, Michael.
At the same time, we need to do something to figure out how to stop so many lithium-ion batteries from causing fires somewhere.
They're both material science problems,
mm-hmm.
for sure, that need to be tackled. I agree.
Yeah, it is one of those things that we're on the cusp of so many different developments. People talk about autonomous vehicles and so on, but the reality is we're on the cusp. We're living through the change that is coming. And personally, from my perspective, in my opinion, I can't wait for the time that we get to take driving out of the hands of drivers, because too many drivers don't do very well.
I have a very similar opinion, even though I will say one of my childhood dreams was to become a race car driver.
There you go.
So I do love to drive. I had an 1/8 of a mile go-kart track in my backyard growing up. And one of the things that kept my sanity during my PhD program was going to the local go-kart track and getting to put in some time trials. So I love to drive, but from a safety perspective, I could not agree with you more that it's high time that we can implement some better safety and probably less traffic.
Well, given the way most people seem to drive up here in Victorville or out here in Victorville, I am of the absolute opinion that I can drive as well as they can anyway. So we'll see.
Coming from the New York driving environment to the North Carolina driving environment, some things are similar, some things are very different. Yeah. But it's definitely been fun spending almost half of my life, now down here in North Carolina.
We had some people visiting us when my wife and I lived in New Jersey, and we drove into the city, and they said, the people who were with us, these cab drivers are crazy. Just look at the way they drive. I would never want to be in a cab with any of those drivers. And my wife pointed out something very relevant and so true for most cab drivers, at least back then. She said, look at those cabs. Do you see any dents? Do you see any dings? And they said, no. And she said, so what do you mean you wouldn't want to be in those cars? You're probably safer in those cars than most anywhere else. And she was right.
She makes a good point. Practice makes perfect.
It does. I love checker cabs, but we don't see those anymore. That's too bad. But oh well. But um, one way or another, I think that the time will come when autonomous vehicles will make driving a lot safer, and that'll be good. But we're not there yet, and we're not there with so many things. I mentioned the lithium-ion batteries. They too will get better, and we will get over all of that. Now, of course, what we need to do is to make sure that we still have rare earth elements around, but that's going to be another challenge that we face over time.
Yes, that's part of the fun, Michael, of being actually in material science as a discipline, that it encompasses so many different touch points that we have in our life. One of my closest friends and was a colleague in my PhD program is working on solid state battery technology that could potentially replace lithium ion technology and solve some of those problems. Just and it spans the whole gamut. I have a friend doing nuclear waste remediation. So very, very cool material science as a whole. I'm obviously very enveloped in, and my love is semiconductors, but my insatiable curiosity, I think I'm in the right field at large.
Yeah. What's the difference between incumbent semiconductors and compound semiconductors?
Incumbent semiconductor technology has been predominantly silicon. So the raw material is, you go to the beach and you get sand. That's obviously very oversimplifying it.
Yes,
I'm not saying that, TSMC or Global Foundries or any of these guys are going to the nearest beach. But that is the raw material. It's very high purity silicon. And compound semiconductors, on the other hand, are still very pure. That's one of the biggest material challenges of semiconductors at large, is to make them pure. But, and I'm glossing over a ton of physics and a ton of material science when I say pure. So just for any fellow material science colleagues out there listening, I am aware that I glossed over a lot. But compound semiconductors are a compound. So you have two or more elements that come together that have semiconducting properties. So indium phosphide, indium and phosphorus, gallium nitride, gallium and nitrogen, aluminum, gallium nitride, aluminum, gallium and nitrogen. So they all come together. And what's very, very handy about these compound semiconductors is they can address a lot of niche applications in a much more efficient way than the incumbent silicon technology. So silicon technology can do a lot. I'm going to venture to say almost everything we need. But the perfect example, and is on the top of everybody's mind, is AI. You're not going to have AI in the form that we know it, if at all, without these compound semiconductors. Silicon is just too inefficient. It's, we've reached certain limits at the material level that we need these compound semiconductors to get more efficient AI, faster data interconnects, even, charging your phone, laptop, electric vehicle quicker. All of these are enabled, and then to continue to iterate and improve, necessitate improvements in compound semiconductors.
Yeah. And that's, of course, the real key. Speed and efficiency have a lot to do with it. I don't know. I remember being a ham radio operator. I remember some of the early radios that I worked with. It was before, as ham operators would tell you, they went dark and went from tubes to transistors. So I remember vacuum tubes. My father was a TV repairman in Chicago before we moved out to California when I was 5. And of course, then the biggest thing you ever replaced in a TV was a tube. Although you did resistors and other things as well. But now, of course, it's a totally different animal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the The vacuum tubes are exactly replaced with transistors. You're
Yeah.
replaced with LEDs and all the different things that modern semiconductors have enabled.
They take a whole lot less power and are a lot cooler in the sense of, well, I guess in cool in all ways. I had one ham radio. It was a Polycom, and I forget the model number, but it ran extremely hot. We finally put a fan on one end of it to pull air through it, but without the fan, I could actually thaw and heat tater tots on it. It was so hot.
Wow, you had a 2-in-1 there. You had a
I
hot
did.
plate and a ham radio.
Right. All at the same time. It was great. But yeah, I understand. And tubes were replaced, and rightly so, by transistors. But a tube is a great way to teach the whole theory of how it all works and give you a way to see it in a very visual way that you're not going to see with transistors very well.
That's true. And something that I was actually just kind of reappreciating today was the history of it all, and how it's so important to realize that science and history are obviously inextricably linked. Yeah. From the progression standpoint, and then from what you said, it's so easy to forget fundamentals and kind of get lost in the sauce, if you will. But I fully agree with what you say, that sometimes the quote unquote old technology is actually just as good, if not better, a way to teach the fundamentals of the new technology.
Yeah.
Because so often they just build off of one another, right?
The reality is that the process hasn't changed in terms of what they do. It's just that the product itself has changed and it's become a lot more efficient and so on. But still, you're moving electrons and and controlling them with positive and negative charges through the whole transistor process, just like you used to do with tubes.
Exactly.
That's what makes it so interesting. And as you said, we take it way too much for granted. But I think that overall, it's great to have the old technology and the perspective to learn from, which is extremely important to do. Well, so what did you get your PhD in?
So my PhD is in material science.
Okay.
That's what it is. My dissertation was on superjunction devices, a novel way to utilize gallium nitride in that particular device structure, superjunction. So again, PhD, high level, material science, compound semiconductors, and I focused on one particular material system, gallium nitride, and the goal was to learn about the material itself, make the material better and more suitable to be utilized in this type of transistor architecture that's called a superjunction.
So have we yet discovered a way to have any kind of superconductor operate at room temperature?
Well, I didn't discover that. There's been, I keep up to date as best I can on other areas of the science world. And I know that we're doing really cool research that was previously thought to be impossible, right? Like most cutting edge scientific research is, but we're close. We're closer than we were, we'll say 10 years ago, to superconducting at room temperature.
Well, it's just like fusion. We've seen it for microseconds, but the time is going to come when fusion will be a way of life as well, which is a good thing. So it'll be fun, and we're seeing lots of changes, and that's a good thing. Well, I want to go back to you and stuttering, because you talk about it a lot. You've learned or dealt with a lot of different kind of speech therapies and things like that. Tell me a little bit more about all the issues that you had with stuttering and how you have learned to deal with it?
Sure. As I said earlier, I can recall stuttering from the second I can remember. In fact, a lot of children do stutter. That's part of development of their speech, but only the lucky 1% get to keep it till adulthood. So I say that I am part of the 1%, but not the 1% that the news talks about.
Mm-hmm.
And as I also said earlier, there's many different ways that stuttering can be treated, the different approaches, different therapies. And I can now say with hindsight, lucky to be exposed to two different kinds of therapy. I first started stuttering speech therapy in school, and this was at a very, very young age. I remember being taken out of first, second grade, going out of class, going to the office down the hall where the speech therapist was, and just running through exercises where I would read, and if I stuttered, it was pointed out, and I was made to repeat the sentence and try to not stutter with various techniques, such as don't think about it, try taking a deeper breath, other things like this. Again, kind of going back to the fact that the root cause is not really understood.
Mm-hmm.
That I tried that. I would imagine a full school year. Long time ago, memory's hazy, but long and short, it didn't work for me. So my parents had the wherewithal and the guidance from the school to seek private practice, seek somebody outside of the school district. And I got paired up, or I didn't get paired up. I guess I found with my parents a person who was 10 minutes down the road from me, who taught what was called the airflow technique, and one of the many different stuttering techniques, or stuttering mitigation, maybe techniques might be a better way to say it. And it is essentially that every time you take a breath, you reset your diaphragm.
Mm.
So to relax the vocal cords, the thought behind the technique was every time you take a breath, stretch or elongate the first vowel that comes out of your mouth. So I would say this, and then I can talk at a speed and I don't have to really worry about it. Again, with the thought being you stretch that first vowel, so on, so it was the O. And the mechanics behind the theory go to the fact that vowels in the English language, what makes them special is that they are what use your vocal cords. They are the sounds in normal speech that use your vocal cords. Think about the word dog. The sound D, it's mouth work, it's tongue, it's not engaging your vocal cords. But the O does. So through a lot of practice, and it was essentially very similar to the reading that I got in the in-school reading, but what she introduced was this technique. So every time I would be reading and breathe, I would introduce this stretch. And what I think was also paramount, which accompanied the technique, was she was very conversational, which is important because that's what speech in the quote unquote real world, right, is for. It's conversation, communication. You're not always just reading a book to an audience. And that comes with different stressors, different things to consider when you're trying to remember your technique. I recall one of probably the best things she did to build rapport with me as a 6, 7, 8-year-old boy was bringing my mom into the therapy room. And my mom is born and raised in Queens, fast talking New Yorker.
Yeah.
And one of the things that puts stress on the vocal cords is speed of speech. And that was one of the things I was also encouraged to do, was to slow down your speech. And growing up on Long Island, being part of that, being part of the New York, being also having a very tough accent, aw, all these things, the speed, the accent put stress on your vocal cords.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember, one day bringing my mom into the office, and she said, "You have to slow down when you're talking to him and around him, because, right, we absorb so much from our surroundings." And the rapport building was for sure, right? It's not very often that as elementary aged people, we get to watch people tell our parents what to do, right? So
Yeah.
very, 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 very good rapport building on her end there. But to my mom's credit, and support, did slow down. The baseline was very high, so I'm sure, especially people down here in the Carolinas, they still ask me to slow down after years of training myself. So I can only imagine what their baseline is, and how they still view people who speak like my mom very fast. But I'm digressing.
That's okay.
Please go ahead.
Has speech therapy and dealing with all of this evolved over the past many years? Because I'm sure that there are a lot of things that are different now than were the case when you were growing up and even in college.
Absolutely. So one thing that I was also lucky to be plugged into my speech therapist, to get involved with my speech therapist in particular, is that she had a very holistic approach, meaning she blended what I'll call traditional psychotherapy, right, where you might go and have a weekly regimen or bi-weekly regimen with a therapist, and you talk about more traditional, not speech related therapy things. But she blended that with speech therapy. So embracing who you are, and understanding that you have a relationship with this thing, this abstract thing that is a stutter, and to treat it as such. And I say that because that is where, as I've gotten more plugged into the community in the last year or so of my life, reconnecting with my therapist, and I've spoken at a couple of different speech language conferences, and thus introduced myself and been introduced to many speech language pathology professionals. That's where the therapy seems to be going, speech and stuttering therapy, as opposed to that traditional regimented, read this page. Oh, you stuttered 12 times. Go back and fix it. That's wrong. Whereas to now, it's, how do you manage it? How do you view your stutter in the holistic self that we are, right, as people? And I was blessed and lucky to have been on the cutting edge. I had no idea of speech therapy at a very young age, because even still today, there is still an uphill battle that is being fought amongst the traditionalists and these new, more cutting edge people that are saying, it's all related. Speech, mental health, and so many other things. And treat the person, not the stutter, I think, is where I want to summarize your question, and where the evolution of speech therapy has gone from, even as early as, the 1950s, when we're looking at very early stuttering speech pathology research, till now. And even as a young person and it's still pervasive today, treating the stutter, not the individual. But what I want to say, and I think is really, my life and experience is a testament to, is to treat the individual, not the stutter.
Yeah. Well, I think we're learning in so many ways that we need to take a more holistic approach to so many things. But I appreciate what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. I know as a blind person who has observed a lot of people who lose their eyesight, and the agencies traditionally say, use your eyes as long as you can, because once you go blind, you've lost. And you're not dealing with the person, you're not dealing with their attitudes, but you're also not even dealing with the reality that blindness isn't the problem that you want it to be or you think it is. And over time, we're seeing a few more agencies, at least, who train people who are losing their eyesight. They're learning earlier that there's nothing wrong with being blind. You're not going to have some of the things that you had before, but you're also going to have things that you didn't have before. And you're going to learn techniques that will help you be able to be just as productive as you ever were. And again, I think it's all about the holistic approach rather than just saying, save your eyes as long as you can.
It's a very damn the torpedoes approach,
Yeah.
right? Which I in listening to your work and talking to you before the show and all this, your perspective on that is so refreshing to say that blindness isn't the problem, our perspective is, because I couldn't agree more. And I've just had the thread manifest itself throughout my life in my speech rather than my vision.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you also talk a lot about doing things in a holistic way, and you talk about living your whole life as a holistic approach to what you do and what you are. So you like to camp, you like to do so many different things, but you find that all of that helps you live a better life. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, to finish answering a little bit the previous question about my stutter and a perfectly segue here, I have found that throughout my journey that it's stress management is so important for me and my stutter. Stress management can be positive. It could be, I remember being a little kid on Christmas morning, running down the steps and stuttering because I was so excited. But also that giving a book report in front of the class, that negative stress, that anxiety, where I stutter just the same. And to this day, in fact, if I'm really sick, physically ill, I find myself stuttering in a way that I usually don't, that I can typically manage better, because I've realized it's really down to stress management. If I'm in a conversation with you here, if I'm in a conversation with my girlfriend, if I'm talking to a room of 100 people, it's how I manage that stress that's gonna dictate the outcome in the form of fluent speech.
Yep.
And that's the root of kind of what has led me to this holistic life approach is, well, stress comes from your life. So where in my life can I mitigate stress as it might not be obviously directly related to my speech, but leveraging having a stutter and having this mindset that developed from it, I'm going to pull it back. I'm going to go back to the first principles. So you mentioned camping. I am a very, I'm going to say anxious person. I don't like sitting still. I like to have a lot of things going on at once. I like to have, obviously my full-time job, but I'm a Toastmaster outside. I'm the treasurer of my club. As I mentioned earlier, I started playing music again in a way that is daily. And I all of those things have since found a purpose. So to camp, though, is to physically unplug myself. I cannot be on my computer working on that project. I cannot be, at my Toastmasters meeting, or, calling the bank and figuring out something for the treasurer side of the role, or, unless I bring my trumpet to play around the campfire. That's actually quite nice. But so that's something where I found to give myself the days to just totally unplug, totally take myself away from my cell phone, and to connect with nature. I'm a very much of human beings are animals, and we are part of the environment, just like everything else. I kind of think it's amusing when we can trick ourselves to thinking that our house, our home, is not part of our larger environment, but it is, right? So things like camping. Another thing that directly that I started as a more holistic life motivated or motivated by a more holistic life, but I found actually directly connected to my speech was doing yoga. I like to be physical. A lot of my hobbies are physical. I like to surf. I like to play disc golf and ride my bike around my neighborhood even. But I wanted to stay in shape, so the yoga element of the body was quite nice. And my girlfriend encouraged me to do it, and she was like, "I think your anxious mind can probably benefit from this too." And she was quite right. And I did it for several months. And again, thinking that this was just part of my holistic life. But now, enter me at a speech competition. And I'm preparing myself mentally to get on stage as I wait for the person going before me. What did I fall back on? Breathing, being present in that moment. A lot of the things that yoga taught me and that I practice every day, every day that I do yoga. And that's where I said it actually wound up directly linking back to my speech as I managed that stress in the moment as it related to my stutter, and then going up and speaking. And then, one thing that the final thing, I can talk about hobbies and what I do all day, but recently picked up surfing. And it's one of those things that I grew up on the beach. I body surfed, I boogie boarded, swam for thousands of hours, but I just never picked up surfing. There was always an opportunity, but there was always something that scared me about it. And finally picking it up, there's that vote of confidence that, you can do it. And then once I got out there and was actually doing the activity, I connected so many different elements of both my journey through speech therapy as well as traditional or regular psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
How often do we hear this expression, ride the wave, or you don't have to give every input that comes your way all of your energy? Surfing and being out there physically reminded me of that. Because if I paddled into every single wave, whether it was good or bad, or I wasn't confident in it, or it looked okay, but I really was impatient, I'm tired a lot quicker, and I can't do this activity that I enjoy. And it's allowed me to take that up to a higher level in my life of, well, if I take on too many things, stretch myself too thin, not be mindful of my physical body, of my mental health, of the things that I need to do, that I might get tired just like, and I might not be able to finish that surfing session, but the surfing session is life, right? Is that big project or that relationship that you're cultivating or whatever other big things happen in your life. But when I do something, especially now, at this point in my life, I really do try and ask myself the question, how is this serving me? And if it is serving me, what else can I take from it rather than, other than, the obvious that might be out of it?
Wow. Pretty deep, but very relevant. You are writing a children's book. I'll bet that has to help your life a little bit. But tell us about the book. We're getting short on time, but I'd love to hear about the book.
Absolutely. I will do my best to practice concision, something else I've been working on. I love to talk. I come from a family of talkers, but I've been working on concision.
Can you believe we've been doing this for almost an hour already?
No. Time flies when you're having fun, Michael.
That's it.
So very quickly, the book is The Adventures of Chip the Semiconductor. That is the title of the book.
Oh, cool.
And it is simply introducing the concept of semiconductors to children at a young age. I'm not trying to teach quantum physics to fifth graders, and I am not just using a character in a story. I'm trying to find something in the middle. So I have concepts on how semiconductors are different from insulators and different from metal wires, your conductors of the world. But I weave them into a story about somebody who got bullied, needed to find themselves in a way that they can go back to confront the bullies, and everybody's better for it. But I introduce some kind of material science, semiconductor concepts throughout the way. And this was actually born from a mixture of my two loves, which is being creative. I get that from the music side of me, and the engineer, the semiconductor guy that's been doing this for a long time. And with a little inspiration from, Toastmasters, going out and doing some public speaking and have to do creative writing to make speeches, more or less, and things like this. I thought, what's a great way to marry, my two passions? And on top of that, my girlfriend Sam is a full-time nanny, so our household is sometimes has kids in it, but sometimes, she's always coming back and talking about the kids, and that was something that sparked me, as well as, just we have a semiconductor ecosystem that we want to bring back into the United States. We have a dearth of skilled workers, qualified workers. Part of the initiatives that you've been seeing, potentially on the news with the CHIPS Act and other U.S. government incentives is to develop a workforce that are going to be able to be the next generation of semiconductor engineers, of semiconductor salespeople, semiconductor manufacturing technicians, and the like. And I'm of the thought that the best way to introduce something to somebody and to get them really thinking about it is at a young age. Yeah. So if we're looking to develop a workforce in semiconductors, what's a better way to start than trying to write a children's book? So stay tuned to that. It's been bouncing around in my brain for a year and a half. I finally put pen to paper in earnest a couple of months ago, and in a fantastic full circle moment, last time I was on Long Island, I ran into my elementary school librarian who wrote a bunch of children's books herself and offered to edit it for me, make connections to her publisher, and all these types of things. So it's It's becoming real. I'm really excited about it, and I know I'm putting the cart before the horse here, but I do envision other books in a Chip the Semiconductor series. So again, stay tuned.
Well,
but a fun project for me.
keep us posted when it comes out. I want to definitely make sure we stick it as a late addition to the show notes, but keep us posted on it. It sounds very exciting, and I agree. Teaching people at a younger age is always important, and the more we can do of that, the better it is. Well,
Absolutely.
I want to thank you for being here. This has been fun, and I want to thank all of you for being out there monitoring our podcast wherever you are. If people want to reach out to you, Dennis, how do they do that?
So I am on a lot of social media. Just made a recent foray back into it. I took a break during COVID, but have come back with an eye to a lot of the things we talked about here today, Michael. Public speaking, being stuttering advocacy, semiconductors, and kind of marrying it all. Really, just bringing my life together. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Dr. Denny Eddy, DrDennyEddie. I'm on Facebook as Dennis Szymanski, Dennis.
Yeah, go ahead.
SZ as in zebra, Y as in yodel, M as in Mary, AN as in Nancy, SKI. And I am working on building out a website and a YouTube channel, more to come. You can also reach me directly on email. Same thing, Dr. Denny Eddy, DrDennyEddie at gmail.com.
There you go. And I hope people will reach out. We'd love you to reach out to us as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about today. Please feel free to email me, Michael H.I. at accessibe, ACCESSIBE.com. We'd appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating where you're monitoring or listening or watching our podcast, but also give us a review. We'd love your reviews and we'd love your thoughts. Dennis, for you and for everyone, if you know anyone who might be a good guest for Unstoppable Mindset, please introduce us. We're always looking for more folks to come on the podcast. I believe everyone has a story to tell, and my belief is that it's great to have the opportunity to give people the chance to do that. So let us know if you think of any guests. But again, Dennis, I want to thank you. It's been wonderful to have you here. I've learned a lot. I think other people have as well. So thanks very much. We appreciate your time and your wisdom.
Michael, I appreciate you having on me, and to all the listeners, hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you.
If you're ready to go deeper into the ideas that shape how we see ourselves and others, I have a free gift for you. Head over to michaelhingson.com and download my free ebook, Blinded by Fear. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep choosing to live with an unstoppable mindset.